Welcome to another episode of Courageous Conversations with Dr. Crystal. And I am so excited to have two really special guests with me today, Yvonne Jackson and Monica Bright. Monica, as you probably have seen, has been on before when we talked about building your own business and talked about her thriving yoga practice and her thriving yoga business. And Yvonne Jackson is someone who is very near and dear, true transparency. She's a BFF cousin of mine. And each of these young women I have coached at different times in their lives and really have found their way to themselves. And I really wanted to take some time and talk about how those of you who follow me, if you're following me, please subscribe. And if you haven't subscribed, think about it and like if you like the video. But one of the things that I've been talking about over the last few months is finding your own joy and your own contentment in the life that you have right now, where you are exactly right now. And I asked these women if they would come and discuss some of the obstacles and hindrances that they have had to finding their authentic voice and their power in both professional and in personal relationships, and how they are thriving, each of them in their own way, moving forward to create the life they want for themselves and for their families. So thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Of course.
So if you don't mind, and I did a really quick introduction, can you tell us a little about who you are?
Sure. Monica, do you want me to go first?
Sure.
I am in my mid-40s and I work in education in Colorado. I have been in education for almost 20 years now. I'm starting as a teacher and then moved up to an administrator, and now I'm a principal. I'm a mom of a 12-year-old little boy who's about, well, I guess he's not little anymore. He's about to be,
not little.
He's not. He's about to be a 7th grader. So a little bit about me. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
My name is Monica Bright, and let's see, I'm a yoga teacher. Master teacher, and also a business owner. So I teach yoga students, but I also teach yoga teachers how to build their careers. And I kind of moved into this path during COVID when we were all working from home. And I decided once I started my own business that I didn't want to give that up. Partially because I enjoy working for myself, but for the other reasons that I get to be at home with my children. I have 2 girls, age 20 and 16. One's off in college, but my youngest daughter, who's in high school, we get to spend so much valuable time together, and that was such a gift over the last 2-3 years that I wanted to hold on to that because she'll be an adult soon, and I don't know if she'll choose to move on or if she'll stay living with me. She's always welcome. Both of them are, but I consider myself an educator. I am a yoga teacher, but before that I was a school teacher and an educational consultant. And when I worked in corporate America, I found myself coaching and teaching the new hirees. So I've always been in a role of teaching. And so I know that at whatever capacity I'm doing that while I'm here on this earth, that it is my purpose for being here. So that's a little bit about me.
Thank you, ladies. So we're going to jump right into our topic. And our topic today is finding love after loss. And that is finding the love of yourself and finding your own empowerment and your own growth and your own resiliency when you have been in a relationship that has not been the relationship that you wanted it to be. And so whether you moved on and whether it's through divorce or whether you moved on and made another decision for yourself or just decided to take some time to figure out exactly what you want and who you are, I wanted to talk to these women because they have really modeled exactly what it is to have an obstacle, to feel sad and, beaten down at some point in time, but most importantly, feeling as though they have found their authentic voice and found what they needed to move forward to create the life they want right now. So we're not doing any backwards looking. We're not looking at mistakes that were made or issues that they had. We're looking at where they are right now. And so what I wanted them to speak to is how they found the courage to move forward in whatever capacity they needed to find their voice and their power. So who wants to open the floor?
Well, I'll just start and admit that I don't know if it was really a choice on my part or that I was thrown into that. Right? By not really by a choice that I made, but I'm single, so I've had a few relationships in my life that I have decided have not been what I want in a relationship and have moved on. I am a certified relationship girl. This is what I've always told myself my whole life. It's like, I love relationships, long-term relationships. I just like the idea of being in relationship. But what I realized is that in choosing that story, what I was giving up was a bit of myself,
Your
right?
power.
Because if this relationship didn't work, then I'm still a relationship girl. So I got to go and find another relationship because I'm a relationship girl, right? And last year I made a concerted effort to not get into another relationship. There was a great deal of healing that I recognized that I needed to go through for myself, in order to grow into the woman that I wanted to be at this stage in my life. And so it wasn't easy because sometimes, getting into another relationship can help cover up all of that hurt and the disappointment and all of that because you got the butterflies of the new. But I decided that each day, whether it hurt or not, whether it sucked or not, and most of them sucked, that I was just going to deal with it, and I was going to try to find happiness with just being single and just with myself and really getting to a point, because this is a question that I legitimately did not know how to answer last year, is like, what makes you happy? And I had a friend that asked me that, and I was like, I don't know. And to admit that to yourself is one thing, but to say that out loud to somebody else is like, wow, I really need to pause here for a second and think about this and figure it out. Try some things out. See if does that make me happy? No, let me try something else.
But I applaud you, and I'm going to let you jump in, Yvonne, but I applaud you, Monica, for admitting that, because the reality is, and that's one of the things as I've started a few series about finding your voice and joy and contentment, most of us don't know what makes us happy. That's not a question that, I mean, personally, that's not a question that I have ever been asked in my parents never asked me what made me happy. My professional endeavors never questioned what made me happy. I had to figure that out on my own, and it is always through trial and error. And so I applaud you on admitting that, because I bet you there are many who are listening who would say they also don't know what makes them happy. And so as you guys have known, one of the things that I ask you is, then how can we ever find someone who helps to make us happy if we don't know what makes us happy.
Mhm.
Yvonne?
Monica, I appreciate what you said, because so much of what you said just resonates with me and my experiences. And you're right. I didn't really have the choice to not be in a relationship. It was just kind of thrown at me. And so I had to figure something out. And I feel like my identity became a wife and a mom, not Yvonne,
Mhm.
not Yvonne the person, but Yvonne the wife or Yvonne the mom. So I struggled a lot with what made me happy. And so I had to take a lot of time being alone, which, like you said, Monica, sucks.
Mhm.
But that was the time I was able to give myself to reflect on past relationships, on past experiences, and what I need for the future. I spent a lot of time alone, which I felt was good, because being a wife and a mom, you're not really alone. You're always with someone. And sharing custody of my son caused me some time to be alone. I couldn't name then what made me happy. I couldn't name then what I liked to do, things that made me happy, because again, my identity was wrapped up in something else.
Mhm.
So just thinking about progression, dated other men, and I realized I was dating the same kind of man each time. And there's
There are people who can relate to that.
yes. Oh, I'm sure. And someone had told me, and I can't remember who it was, but God will teach you the same lesson over and over again until you get it. And so once I found myself in the same kind of situations, relationships, I just kind of stopped and I said, God, what are you teaching me? And another person told me, and I thought it was a little crazy, but to write down what I wanted in a man so I can manifest it. And so I remember it was in December, a couple of years ago, and I just wrote down, here's what I want. And I didn't hold back. I kept my expectations high, and I wrote down every single quality or characteristic that I was looking for. And 3 months later, I met this amazing guy. This was over 2 years ago, and we're still together. And everything I wrote down manifested into him. And I don't think I would have gotten to the place where I was at that time, if I hadn't taken that time to be alone and to reflect and to think who I am as a person. Because yes, I'm a mom. That is a very, very important part of my identity, but I'm also lots of other things too. So I just appreciate that time that I was forced to take to
Well,
be
thank
able
you
to
both
reflect.
for correcting me that this was not time that either of you wanted to take, but I'm going to push you both. And just because I know a little of your stories and say it may not have been what you wanted to do, but I know at certain levels that it is actually what you knew you had to do for you, because you had to grow into the person that you wanted to become. And you both have talked about how identity is so important. And I think especially for women and professional women in particular, you know, we become our jobs, we become parents, we become spouses, we become the best friend, we become the whatever. And never do we take a moment to figure out who I am, what I want, what makes me happy, what brings me joy. And because we live in a society of everything quick fixes and everything is bright and shiny, and we look at Instagram and YouTube and Facebook, and we see these beautiful pictures that have taken 20 hours to make one shot, and we think that's the perfect life. And then you look at your life and you go, it really doesn't measure up. But what I really hope and try to encourage everyone to do is to model your life after you and what makes you happy, and ask those questions. What do I want? What don't I want? What are my deal breakers? You know, I think, do we ask what our deal breakers are, or do we just get to a point and realize that, ooh, that's not where I want to be? So, you know, these are all questions that if we don't ask ourselves, how will we ever find the person to meet that
Mhm.
or to offer that.
Mhm. I want to share this part of some of my healing journey. I think um, initially, when I became single, it was like, oh, this person did this and this and this wrong, blah blah blah. That lasts for about, a month or so or whatever, and then um, I had to take a look at me and how is it that I wound up in a relationship that had so many very, very, very clear red flags at the beginning, right? And and so that kind of work with myself and questioning myself and like, you saw this though, right? But you gave excuses. You saw all of this stuff, and you still kept on going. And for me, it was like, well, let me get right with myself. Let me get real with myself. And the truth is that, when I was entering not just one relationship, but many relationships in my life, I enter them from a place of brokenness in myself,
Mhm.
right? And so if I hadn't done self work to understand or to realize or to get to a point where I love myself this much, but instead I love myself this much, and this gap in between, I'm looking for somebody else to fill and to give to me the love that I don't know how to give to myself, was really important for me to figure out that no, Monica, like you share some blame in this situation that you have found yourself in. But the beauty of it, and I would not go through the experience, I would 100% go through it again, because these experiences that I've had in my life have awakened me to the point where it's like, girl, get yourself together. Right? Otherwise, you're going to, like you said, Yvonne, just keep on dating the same person in a different
Right.
body. And so along that path, I talked to you a little bit about this, Crystal. We've had some conversations about this term that I kind of created myself. I don't know if it's like real or not, but it's like conditional happiness, where I place my happiness on conditions outside of me, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And whether somebody calls or somebody texts, or if, my children do something, or but something that's outside of my control. And I realize I can't allow my happiness to be dependent on something else. Like, if he or she doesn't call, am I still going to be happy? And
Validation. Validation. And part of that is that society has us look outward for validation. We don't look inward for validation. How does this make me feel? How do I think that I show up in this relationship? And I think that so much of what we do as mothers and as caretakers are we look outward to how are we making everyone else happy, as opposed to figuring out what's making me happy. And we miss that. We miss that mark of, oh, I'm not satisfied. I'm not content. I'm really not happy, but everyone else around me is. So therefore, I should be okay.
Mhm.
And so we miss the opportunity to say, but I have a voice and I matter, and my feelings matter, and my thoughts matter, and what I need and want matter.
I think that I had come to the realization, like really realizing that I have lived most of my life doing things that I think I'm supposed to be doing, or somebody has, said to me that I should be doing. By 26, I was married with a house and, a four-door sedan. I had a sports car before then. Like, I didn't want a sedan. And, but these are things, it's like, well, I'm getting in my late 20s. I should be getting married now. Like, this is what I should be doing. And now, I finally have gotten to the point where it's like, I don't care what or you think I should be doing. It's like, what do I want to do? What do I want to do? And if that means I want to lay in the bed and watch Netflix all day, if that's what I want to do, I'm going to do it.
That's right. That's right. And I think that it's important to remind yourself that you do get the option to choose what you want to do in your life.
Right.
And what are we teaching our children?
Well, I was just about to bring that up. It's just like, yeah, because I know that my daughters are watching everything that I do, and Yvonne, your son's watching everything that you do too, right? And so we think about like, how are we modeling? Um, uh,
what
when we go through hardships, right? What are they seeing, right? How do they see you wake up every day? How do they see you navigate it? They're not going to not have hardships, right? But modeling, I didn't have these conversations with my mom. I never saw her date ever. So it's not like I had these conversations. And I know with my children, it's like, no, I want to talk to them about this. Like, what do you think? And so I asked my oldest daughter, I was like, do you think that last year that I was depressed? And she was like, oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Like,
she also gave you a really good word that she used, that you were being gaslit. If I'm not mistaken, that was the word that she used. And you were like, okay now.
There's so many terms that come up in dating life nowadays, stuff that I had no idea, because I was married for 20 years, before I'm thrown back out in the dating scene. And for me, it was just like, I like you and you like me. Like, let's figure this out. And it's like, that's not how it works these days. It's so different, but I've learned so much. And again, I wouldn't take any of it back, because I wouldn't be who I am now, who's standing like in my own power, and making choices for me, and not because they will benefit somebody else or it will please somebody else. But in order for me to get here, I had to go through these experiences.
So let's, if you don't mind, let's take a little turn to what some of the feelings are that you have had to work through. And Monica, one of the things that you talked about that I thought was really, really important is how we place blame outwards initially, and then we place blame inward. And I dare say that we start nitpicking and going through the nuances and redoing and replaying, and what could I have done differently, and how did I misstep here, and what, as opposed to taking the time to actually understand that this is actually what happened. And while it's not okay, it's leading to growth and resiliency. So what kind of obstacles did you guys personally feel that you had to overcome in order to move forward so that you could be where you are now?
I think for me, I am definitely a self-proclaimed people pleaser. That is something that at 40, almost 43 years old, I'm still working on. And I feel like that gave my power away. Without being able to use my voice or be authentic or share my true feelings, I wasn't allowing myself to be authentic, because I always said what the other person wanted to hear. And I think that contributed to my identity and not knowing who I was, what I liked, what made me happy. That was one thing that I really noticed that I needed to work on, which I think also ties into self-esteem. You're afraid to share what you really feel, because you don't want that other person to be mad at you. And then you're mad at yourself for feeling that way. And that's hard for me. And that's something I'm also trying to teach my son is please use your voice. If you feel something, use your voice, because like you both said, our kids are always watching and they are so smart and pick up on all these little nuances. But I've realized I can say all that I want, but if I don't model it for him, it's not going to connect.
That's right.
So just trying to empower himself and me to not be afraid to use our voices, because our voices matter. Our voices are important. And having differences, I think, makes relationships, connections with people exciting. And that's okay.
And voicing those differences, if I can interject, because I think one of the things that I am really a proponent of and really think it's important as parents is that we need to model for our children how to have difficulties and differences in a healthy way. And that there are times and experiences where people will not agree. What do you do during that time? Do you shut the other person down? Do you walk away? Do you eventually come together and talk? These are things that that our youth need to see us model, and our children, women, need to see that it's okay to disagree in a respectful, responsible way. Men need to see that it's okay to have a woman disagree in a respectful, responsible way, so that there is this wonderful, strange word. I don't know if you've ever heard this before, communication. We've lost the art of communicating. You don't like what I said. I don't like what you say. I'm going to harm you. I'm going to walk away. Our relationship's ended. We have to go back to where we can communicate about differences.
I also think a lot about when I mention my son, I think of how I grew up as well. And I feel like that is all connected. Monica, you mentioned your mom and not ever seeing her date. I think of conflict. I never outwardly saw my parents have conflict with each other. But even though they didn't have conflict, being a kid and being intuitive, I knew that there was something up between them. I knew that they were mad at each other. So not really seeing what healthy, I don't want to say healthy, but what communication or healthy conflict looks like, and it wasn't modeled, you kind of pick up your own stuff, or you just repeat what you saw your parents do or your family members do. And that's something that I'm cognizant of and try to model for my son. But I'm not perfect. And I know it's something that I'm working on, and I'm going to continue to work on that piece too.
Yeah, I think it's so challenging because we aren't really taught like conflict resolution, right? We aren't really taught like healthy communication, or what happens when, or how do you navigate it when you don't have healthy communication? Like, what do you do? We aren't taught these things. So we're going through life just trying to figure it out as best we can. And if you're lucky enough to have a partner who is like, yes, I'm willing to figure this out with you, then gosh, like, yay. But if you're not, if you don't have someone who's willing, to go down those roads with you, then, it's really hard to get out of that hole. I think, for me, what I really had to learn to do while I'm navigating this grief and this period of who am I, and I'm single now, and this is not what I thought my life at this stage was going to look like, is that healing is this winding road that has potholes and all kinds of U-turns and dead ends and everything. And there were times where I was like, I'm doing pretty good, on this healing journey. And then something would happen, and then I would crash and burn. And I was like, oh gosh, okay, I didn't handle that. But what I always told myself was, it's okay, Monica. This is going to help you. This is going to help you evolve. You going through this situation
Right
is
now.
going to help you evolve to the next level. So giving myself grace, it's like, okay, I didn't handle it the best this way, but I went through it and now I know I would handle it in a different way. So it's like, okay, I got through that. Now, let's keep on with this journey. And when the next thing comes, let's see, because I learned something in the last hiccup. So
Okay.
let's see if the thing that I learned in the last hiccup, can I apply it to, what is to come in the future, and to not be so hard on myself. Like, like I was broken. I was destroyed,
Mm.
honestly. And so to pick myself back up and really get through this and not cover it up with a new relationship was something that I felt like I really need to do at this point in my life. And so, I've shared with you, Crystal, that I've dipped my toes back in the, dating game, and I'm like, yep, nope, I'm not ready. you know?
Absolutely.
And to be honest, it's some of it is like, yeah, you and I are not a good match. Like, you would not be who I would choose. But then on the other hand, I have found myself like dipping my toe in and starting to lose myself. And I don't want to get to that.
Mhm.
When I begin to date again, I want to be in a space. This is my hope for myself, is that, and what I'm working on, is to be in a space where it's like, I don't have to lose any of me. I can still give to me and the overflow give to one else. But in this process, I'm not losing myself again. And that's really important for me. And so when I recognize that I've done that, it's like, oh, no, let me pull back. Because I have a little bit more stuff to do with myself, and I'm okay. I'm okay. Like, finally, I'm okay with being single.
And I want to remind you that, healing is a journey, not a destination. You don't get to a place where you say, I'm healed, this will never happen again. There will be obstacles and bumps and bruises, and you may fall back and fall ahead. But one thing you said, Yvonne, that I really wanted to highlight or wanted us to talk about for a few more minutes is about intuition. And I'm a firm believer that any mistakes that I've ever really made in my life, I have gone against what my whole being told me was wrong.
Mhm. Mhm.
I knew it, and it would destroy others or make someone else unhappy, or I would be seen as the bad person, and so I just kind of acquiesced. And every fiber of my being told me that situation, that circumstance, that person, that event, whatever, was not what I needed to be involved in. And so I think that, and you alluded to this, Yvonne, we don't listen to our intuition. We don't listen to ourselves, and we don't listen to that part of ourselves that says, that's not right.
Mhm.
And I think that we often think we have to understand it in the moment, which is false. Sometimes you just get the feeling something's not right, and you just have to wait to find out why.
Mhm.
Mhm. Yeah.
That is so true. And I relate to that so much because of, like you said, there's been thinking about the events that or mistakes I've made. There's always been that voice in the back of my head where I'm like, don't do that. But I don't listen to it. I don't go with my gut, and I just keep moving forward. And obviously hindsight is 2020. And I think with that too, I think it's important to learn from that, to learn what happens when you don't use your voice. And I think, Monica, you were talking about big red flags. And before, when I had started dating again, if I noticed a big red flag and I felt my intuition going off, I would just stop that relationship. And I knew I was on my healing journey when I was able to do that. I knew that I had peace being single. And the minute someone disrupted my peace or disturbed my peace, it's like, nope, I'm so fine being single. I don't need you to come in and disturb my peace and disturb what I've created for myself.
Mhm.
And I hope that we all realize that we're not looking for a partner to complete us. We're looking for a partner to enhance us because
Mhm.
we're already complete. We're already complete and whole individuals just the way we are. And so the partner that you want is the partner who makes you better, as you want a partner who you can make better. Because if we're looking for someone to fill a void or a hole or to heal us, one, they can't do that.
Mhm.
You'll never be whole. And so I like to remind myself and my clients and just people in general that, you know what, you get to speak your truth for you, just like the other person gets to speak their truth for them, and they don't have to agree. But you do have to make sure that whatever you decide on and whatever you decide you want to do for you, you take the positives and the negatives and say, yeah, I made this mistake, but that's okay, because at that point in time, it was a mistake that I was willing to make for me, not for someone else, not for someone else's journey, but for my journey and for my growth.
Mhm. Yeah.
Mhm.
Another thing I'd add is that my children are older than than yours, Yvonne, but my oldest daughter, in she's dating, and in her dating experience, I've learned so much just watching her. And so, she's had experiences before where she's like, "Yep, I broke up with him," and like, "Well, wait a minute, did y'all talk? Did you try to give it a chance?" And she's like, "Yeah, I tried it, and they didn't listen." And so, and I was like, "Wait a minute, though," and she's like, "No, I'm good." Like, and I was like, "But don't you want to patch things?" And she's like, "No, I'm
To
good.
catch up, I'm
I'm moving
fine.
on." And I was like, "Wow, okay."
I just want to push that little piece that you said, Monica, because I think that's so important. She said, no, I'm good. And she had to tell you that several times before you got the point, I'm good. And so that's part of us learning from them that, you know what, I'm good. And it's okay to say, no, stop, enough, I'm good. And someone to understand that that's exactly what you feel and what you mean.
Yeah, yeah, right. And the thing is like, I did not teach her that.
Well,
She's
I'm going to say you taught her some of that. And you
like,
may not feel that you taught her that, but you taught her, and it may not have been in that particular arena, but you taught her to value who she was and her
yeah,
voice and her authenticity. And that's what that did.
yeah.
That's what she did. That's exactly what she did.
Oh,
So I want to take just a few more minutes and talk about to any of our listeners. Yvonne, did you hear me? I know you are between
Yes.
things. Okay. I wanted to take a few more moments and talk about to our audience and to anyone who may hear this, 5 takeaways that you would give yourself. And a lot of it's growth. I understand that, things that you've grown into, but now knowing what you know, and I'm going to add the big grace there because I just want to caveat that with grace. When you know better, you do better.
Mhm.
So is there anything that a young woman or man who's listening today and has had their heart broken and is trying to find their way back to themselves, that you can give any suggestions or support or thoughts?
Mm.
I mean, I maybe we can bounce off of each other.
Yes.
I don't have a list of 5 like straight away,
Go
but
your
but
list of whatever.
but I think it doesn't seem like it in the moment that this will pass. You are going to be okay. You will learn so much from this. I believe that all the experiences that we have here were planned for us to have before we even got here, right? So this is sort of like our destiny, right? To come here, to learn these lessons, to go through these experiences. And I think that that is what has helped me so much. It's like, okay, so I chose to come here and experience this duality of wanting to be in a relationship and experience so much relationship pain or pain in relationships, right? But what is that teaching me? What is that teaching me? And just like, will I ever get to a solid like answer and I'm done? Right? I don't know. But always questioning and just being really curious about the process. Um, and like you said, giving myself grace and not being so hard on myself. Like, everybody makes mistakes. There's nobody who doesn't. And we can have these mistakes, grow, learn from them, and keep on moving.
Mhm. Yeah.
Mhm.
One thing I want to say is your heart will heal. It might not seem like it in that moment, but it will. It might seem like the worst day of your life and you'll never experience anything like this again. And you'll get through it. You will. Another thing that I think of is learn to love yourself, learn to find joy in yourself. Like Monica said, everything happens for a reason, and take this time and just learn to find out who you are. Spend time by yourself. It's hard, but I think it's something that everyone needs to do. Another thing that I can think of is find your people. When I was going through just some hard times, I had my people that I can talk to, that I could cry to, that I can pick up the phone, and I knew they would answer at any time. I really don't think I would have been able to get through some of those hard times without my people. And so rely on them, lean on them, and spend time with them too. I think that's really important.
Mhm. Yeah. I would say two more things. The first is that I spoke to a good friend of ours, and I was like, "Oh my God, my heart is broken. How do you heal?" And she responded and just said, "Your heart is not broken. It has burst open. It has expanded, and it is." Open to receive so much love. And so when you do find your people, um, um, they can aid so much in your healing. It can give you so much, to work from, give you some different perspectives to think about. Because, I was just running around like, my heart is broken, my heart is broken. Oh my gosh, I'm so devastated, and then when I thought of it from a different perspective, it was like, wait a minute, I have this capacity to love even more. And so I'm just so looking forward to that, to being able to love, and starting with myself, right? How can I do this with myself? The second point has escaped me right now, so I'm gonna see if it comes
Okay.
back. But yeah.
I love the way you guys have ended this, because the most important piece that I think that has been said over and over again today is loving yourself. And that, I'm a proponent and I'm a believer that you can't love someone else until you know and love yourself. And we aren't taught that. Society doesn't teach us that. Society teaches us that we need to look outward for acceptance and approval and validation. We aren't taught to look inward for what we feel, what we need, what we want, what brings us joy. And so one of the things I was so grateful for you two saying that you would come on and discuss this with me today was that you each are on very different journeys. But most importantly, you have found your authenticity and your voice and your power, and you've decided how you want to show up and move forward in your world. And no, is it perfect? Not at all. And are there days that are really difficult? Yes. And are there days that are really, exciting? Yes. And everything in between. But when you believe that you will be able to master and conquer and grow, to become the person that you want to be, that's when you can sit back and just wait for it to happen. Because you you can't force growth. You can't force it. You can't just say, tomorrow I'm going to stop grieving and it's all over, because invariably what will happen is something will happen, or you'll be reminded of something and you'll be right back where you were. So thank you, ladies, for taking the time to tell your truth, to share your heart, to give some advice and some support to each other. And I want to also not downplay the importance of finding a coach or someone that you who has a professional orientation in either relationships or just coaching, that it is important sometimes when you find that you are stuck.
Mhm.
Because sometimes you get stuck, and that doesn't mean that that's a negative or you're moving in the wrong direction. It just means maybe you need, as you said, Monica, a fresh perspective to see what you need to do and what you need to do, what you have to offer, or what you need to do to move forward.
Right, absolutely. And just to jump off your last point, the difficult days are not as many as they used to be, right? That's number one. And then number two, when they do happen, I know how to manage them better, so that like this whole process where it was like more difficult days than not difficult days, and on those difficult days I was going down rabbit holes and doing all kinds of destructive things, it's those days are less, and when they happen, I know how to keep my sanity. I know how to work through them so that they can be difficult and I can still navigate and get to the other side and keep on moving with my life. But it's super important to be able to to talk to people, to get the stuff that you're thinking in your head out, and listen to somebody else, and a certified person if you can.
Understood. Well, thank you, ladies. And I know, Yvonne, you have another meeting, so I know that you have to run, but I actually would love to do this again if you guys are open to this. I think that hopefully if there are any questions or thoughts that you have in the audience that you'd like to put on the screen, or that you'd like to let us know, and even a topic that maybe you want to figure out how they've navigated, or what professional advice would be given or has been given, so that you can get to a place where you're loving yourself and finding your voice and deciding that you want to move forward to be the best you that you can be. So thank you again, Yvonne and Monica, and thank you again for joining me for another episode of Courageous Conversations with Dr. Crystal. I hope that you like and subscribe to today's conversation. So thank you guys so very much for joining us. And again, thank you for joining Dr. Crystal.
Thank you.